one of the most impressive stories from the Bible. The plagues of Egypt were 10 punishments sent by God to the Egyptian people who kept the Israelites as slaves. God chose Moses and his brother Aaron to ask Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to free the Israelites. But Pharaoh refused to obey God and hardened his heart, so God sent the plagues one after another to show his power and his justice. The first plague, the Nile, was the main river of Egypt and was considered sacred by the Egyptians. They depended on the river for drinking, irrigating crops, and fishing. But God commanded Aaron to strike the river with a rod, and all the water turned into blood. The second plague, God commanded Aaron to stretch out his rod over the waters of Egypt, and frogs appeared everywhere. They entered houses, bedrooms, beds, ovens, and Egyptian vessels. Pharaoh asked Moses to pray to God to remove the frogs and promised to release the Israelites. But when the frogs died, he changed his mind and did not keep his word. The third plague was the infestation of lice. God commanded Aaron to strike the dust of the earth with his rod, and the dust turned into lice. The lice covered the people and animals of Egypt, causing itching and discomfort. Pharaoh's own magicians recognized that this plague was the finger of God, but Pharaoh refused to listen and continued to resist. The fourth plague. God commanded Moses to warn Pharaoh that if he did not let the Israelites go, he would send swarms of flies over Egypt. Flies were unclean and disgusting insects that could transmit diseases and spoil food. The fifth plague was the pestilence on the animals. God commanded Moses to announce to Pharaoh that he would send a deadly pestilence upon the livestock of Egypt, which would die in the fields. The cattle were very important to the Egyptians, as they were used for work, transportation, and sacrifice to the gods. But God spared the cattle of the Israelites, which were not affected by the pestilence. The sixth plague was the infestation of boils. God commanded Moses and Aaron to take ashes from a furnace and scatter them toward the heavens in front of Pharaoh. The ashes spread throughout Egypt and caused malignant sores on people and animals. The seventh plague was the hailstorm. God commanded Moses to go to Pharaoh and tell him that if he did not let the Israelites go, he would send a hailstorm upon Egypt, such as had never been seen before. The hailstones were large and heavy, and they destroyed the crops, animals, and people in the fields. Pharaoh confessed that he had sinned against God and the Israelites, but after the hail stopped, he changed his mind and did not let the Israelites go. The eighth plague. God commanded Moses to stretch out his rod over Egypt and bring an east wind, which brought with it a swarm of locusts. The locusts were voracious and devoured everything that was left of the crops after the hailstorm. They covered the face of the earth and darkened the sky. The ninth plague was darkness. God commanded Moses to stretch out his hand toward the sky, and there was thick darkness over all the land of Egypt for 3 days. The darkness was so dense that people could not see one another. But the Israelites had light in their dwellings. Then Pharaoh called Moses and said that he could take the Israelites, but he must leave the livestock in Egypt. But Moses refused this condition and said that he would take everything, because he needed the livestock to offer sacrifices to God. Then Pharaoh became angry and said that he did not want to see Moses' face again, because if he did, he would die. The 10th and final plague was the death of the firstborn. God commanded Moses to warn Pharaoh that at midnight he would pass through all the land of Egypt and kill all the firstborn.